I apologize. I can't stand this. This gets on my freaking nerves. I really wish I had a tripod sitting here. I accidentally pressed the up and down button and I accidentally cut the video off. So I'm continuing my horror collection of video games. It's better this way anyways because there's a lot to get through and I want to do two parts. Resident Evil Revelations 2 for the PS Vita. Yeah, we'll go ahead. Yeah, this is good. Silent Hill Book of Memories. I'm gonna hold my... Oh, I'm so mad. I was actually trying to fit that whole video in one because I was getting through it pretty good. Silent Hill Origins for the PSP. All I need is Silent Hill Shattered Memories, I think it's called. That's all I need. Now I have them all. Done with the Sony handhelds. Done with Sony in general. Now we're moving on to my Nintendo horror games. The only Nintendo 64 horror game I have is Resident Evil 2. And the only NES horror game I have is Friday the 13th. Now, moving on to GameCube horror games. Starting with Eternal Darkness, Sanity's Requiem. This was a good game. I like this. Luigi's Mansion. Resident Evil 0. Resident Evil. Resident Evil 2. Resident Evil 3. Nemesis. And excuse me, sorry. Resident Evil Code Veronica X. And last but not least, for the GameCube board games, Resident Evil 4. Now, moving on to the Wii board games. Dead Rising, Chop Take Drop. Dead Space Extraction. And for those wondering what in the world does Dead Space look like on the Wii, here you go. That's what it looks like. Ju-On, The Grudge, Haunted House Simulator. Obscure, The Aftermath. Resident Evil. Resident Evil 0. Resident Evil Umbrella Chronicles. Resident Evil The Dark Side Chronicles. Resident Evil 4 Wii Edition. And last but not least, for the Wii, crap. Silent Hill Shattered Memories for the Wii. I actually played that version before the PS2 version. Alright, now my Wii U 4 games. Resident Evil Revelations. And last but not least for the Wii U, Zombie U. Okay, I'll show you my Nintendo Switch 4 games. Resident Evil Triple Pack. Resident Evil Origins Collection. And last but not least for the Switch, Resident Evil Collection. Revelations Collection. This is Revelations 1 and 2. Done with those. Now I will share my Nintendo handhelds. Game Boy, Nintendo DS, and Nintendo 3DS. This is for the Game Boy Color. Resident Evil Gaiden. And that was the only one for Game Boy Color. This is the only horror game I have for the Nintendo DS. Resident Evil Dead Silence. And now moving on to the Nintendo 3DS. Resident Evil the 3D, or the Mercenaries 3D. Resident Evil Revelations. And last but not least for the Nintendo 3DS, Spirit Camera. And that is all for Nintendo. Now moving on to Sega. My one Saturn game, Resident Evil for the Sega Saturn. The only horror game I own for the Sega Saturn. Blue Stinger. Dino Crisis. Resident Evil 2. Resident Evil 3 Nemesis. Resident Evil Code Veronica. This was a groundbreaking when it first came out, seeing the visual effects from Resident Evil on Dreamcast after coming from the PS1 games was insane. The House of the Dead 2. And that is all, folks, for the Sega horror games. Now, last is the Microsoft Xbox horror games. These are the last games of my horror collection. The Microsoft games, starting with Fatal Frame, on the original Xbox. Fatal Frame 2, Director's Cut. Silent Hill 2. And this has what the greatest hits. Silent Hill 2 has on the PS2. Silent Hill 4, The Broom. Rise of Nightmares. Condemned. Criminal Origins. Movie on Xbox 360. I apologize. We just got done with the original Xbox. Now we're doing Xbox 360. Condemned 2. Bloodshot. Dead Space 2. Or Dead Space 1. The world. Here's Dead Space 2. Left 4 Dead. Left 4 Dead 2. Resident Evil 0. Resident Evil HD Remaster. Resident Evil Operations Raccoon City. Resident Evil Revelations, our revival selection. It does have Revelations and Resident Evil 4 on here. Resident Evil 5. Resident Evil Gold Edition. It comes with these things here. Resident Evil 6. Resident Evil 6 Archives. Those are these things here. Resident Evil Revelations. And last but not least, for the Xbox 360 horror games, Resident Evil Revelations 2. Now, moving on to Xbox One. Horror games on the Xbox. Or, excuse me. These, I forgot. I'm sorry. These are the horror games that I put to the side that have horror elements. BioShock. Creepy environment. Bullet Witch. You play as a witch fighting demons. Here she goes. I love that costume. Yeah, this was a really, really, really good game. A lot of people don't know about it. I haven't really heard of it, but it's a good game. It is an action game, but she's a witch doing really cool stuff. She uses guns. Dead Rising. Again, you're fighting tons of zombies that you can see. And that is it, folks, for the Xbox 360 or games and games with 4 elements. Now, moving on this time for real to Xbox One. Dead Rising 3. Dead Rising 4. Resident Evil Origins Collection. Resident Evil 2. Resident Evil 2 Deluxe Edition. Resident Evil 3. Resident Evil 4. Resident Evil 5. Resident Evil 6. Resident Evil 7. Biohazard. Resident Evil 7 Biohazard Gold Edition. Resident Evil 7 Biohazard Deluxe Edition. Resident Evil Revelations 2. And last, for the Xbox One, horror games, Resident Evil Revelations. And we are done with the Xbox One. Now, last console of this entire video, Xbox Series X, Resident Evil Village. Resident Evil Village Deluxe Edition. Resident Evil 8 Village Gold Edition. Resident Evil 4 Remake. And last for this entire video, Resident Evil 4 Gold Edition. And that there, folks, is my entire horror collection of my video games, of all my consoles. Wow. Thank you very much for viewing the video. My favorite horror game of all time is Resident Evil, as you obviously know, because I have a video collecting all those games. This is most of them. So, yeah, thank you for viewing the video. For those who love Resident Evil, I suggest you check the video out. But yes, this is my horror collection. All these games have been beaten, played through, platinum, 100%. I am definitely big on that stuff. So, thank you for viewing. Thank you. I do apologize for accidentally cutting the video earlier. I apologize about that. But I was going to do two different parts anyways because I didn't want the video to be too long. But conveniently it worked. So leave me some love, comments, like the video, subscribe to my channel. Thank you all. Collector 513 out.